Well, if you don't believe Christopher Reeve was the best Superman and Clark Kent, I'm about to change your mind. So, when people bring up the character of Superman, there's only a few names you can really call on. And the first one, to me, is always Christopher Reeve. Reeve's take on Superman and Clark Kent still is unparalleled to today's standard. For me, it was always Reeves' ability to seamlessly blend these two characters, but have them be completely separate at the same time. And his portrayal was really the first, at least on the big screen. You did have others like Kirk Alyn in movie serials and George Reeves, of course, on TV. Those are more kind of campy and a little more comic booky. Reeves, on the other hand, he played it straight for the most part. And while doing that, he created a version of Superman and Clark Kent that has definitely stood the test of time. And whether it's Brandon Routh or Tyler Hoechlin from the WB series or Henry Cavill, the latest iteration of Superman, all of those guys did well in their own right, and they did a good job. I'm not going to dog on them. Henry Cavill I thought was great. The problem was they didn't capture that magic that Christopher Reeve had. And one of the things that he did that was so outside the norm at the time is that he made Clark Kent a completely separate character by making him a nerdy, goofball, clumsy dork, basically. And that was not a thing. That was not a thing in the comic books. In the comics, Clark Kent was a top-tier, in-the-action reporter for the biggest paper in the country. He was like a man's man, and that was the nerdy Clark Kent persona, which we all have come to think that's what it is. That's all from Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner. That was an invention for the movie to really separate the two, to make it a plausible reality that glasses could be an actual disguise. It's the worst disguise of all time, but Christopher Reeve sold it to Lois Lane in the movie and to us as the audience goer. We really thought, oh yeah, that is a pretty good disguise, because he made a completely different persona. And in that original 1978 movie, Superman, the movie, the creative decision to do that generally made Clark Kent's transition into Superman much more profound, mostly because it emphasized the stark contrast between the two characters. Reeves' Clark Kent was not just an alter ego, it was a completely separate person. He stuttered when he spoke. His tie was usually crooked, always fumbling around with his glasses. Every 2 minutes or so, he would do that. And he exhibited that kind of socially awkward behavior that you might expect a person trying too hard to fit into a world that doesn't belong in. And what really set Reeves' performance apart from all the others that have come after him is the ability to seamlessly transition between those two characters without changing an outfit, by simply adjusting his posture, kicking his shoulders back, and deepening his voice. He could become Superman. If you've ever watched the original movie, you'll see after he flies Lois around throughout the city, she is in shock and awe. He flies away, and then Clark Kent comes to her door right after. And Clark Kent is trying to tell her as she's in a daze getting her jacket. He takes off his glasses, stands up straight, puts his shoulders back, and deepens his voice, and said, "Lois, there's something I have to tell you. I'm really..." And then he panics and doesn't want to tell her, puts his glasses back on. I really was nervous about tonight. And he goes right back into Clark Kent seamlessly. It was perfect. This did two things. This sold the idea that the ridiculous disguise of glasses is now sellable to Lois Lane. As the movie-going audience, oh, yeah, okay, she's supposed to be a really smart and savvy reporter. She should have figured this out. But no, I realize now she probably couldn't figure that out, because I, as an audience viewer, am realizing, oh, wow, that is a really good disguise, because it's a completely different person. The problem with me for Henry Cavill's version of it, and I don't think it was necessarily his choice, was that when his Clark Kent came into the Daily Planet at the end of that Man of Steel movie, he just kind of was a sexy college professor. And that is a decision, I guess, he had to go with, and the director had to go with, Zack Snyder, because Henry Cavill is just too goddamn good looking. He cannot pull off a nerd. Whereas Christopher Reeve, although a very good looking guy, he had just that little bit of nerd in him. Is like 10% there. And if he flexed it, he was full on super nerd Clark Kent. And he could just do that. I don't think Henry Cavill could play a nerd. The dude's just too sexy. Another big element for Reeve's performance that I believe makes him the #1 Superman of all time. So far, we haven't seen what David Corenswet's going to do, but we'll see. But either way, I believe he is the best one because of his undeniable on-screen charm. The guy just ate up the camera in every scene that he was in, all the while striking that delicate balance between those two characters throughout the entire film. Reeve definitely brought a likability and charm and a little bit of finesse to that role, especially of Superman. When you look at him just standing in the suit, you just get this feeling like he's going to do his best. And that makes you want to believe in the guy and root for him throughout the entire movie. And that, in the end, is really the entire point of Superman. He's an ideal. He's very similar to Captain America. It's not about America, and it's not about Superman fighting for truth, justice, and in the American way. It's an ideal. That's what those characters represent. They're an ideal of what a country should strive for. Captain America isn't about America. Captain America is about an ideal that America should shoot for that may not always get there, but we should always be striving towards it. And that's very much the same way with Superman. In the end, Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman remains the gold standard, the Goldilocks zone, the GOAT. His combination of physicality, vulnerability, and stoicism, and of course his incredible acting range, which I believe Christopher Reeve was one of the most underrated and underutilized actors of his time. This all set him apart. It set him apart from all of the other actors who have come after him. From Reeve's take on Clark's alter ego being a clumsy, nerdy goofball, and his effortless ability to transition between those two characters on screen without changing an outfit. And of course, his commitment to that role, to bringing both the strength and humanity to that role. That's what really nails it home for Christopher Reeve in the original 1978 Superman the movie. And that's why I believe Christopher Reeve is the GOAT when it comes to playing Superman and Clark Kent. He's our Superman, he's my Superman, and he should be yours too.